Kia ora and welcome to One Ancestor at a Time for our weekly live. It's Friday, March the 6th, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Hope it's good for you wherever you are. And so yesterday I had a great experience visiting Orake Marae, which is the home of Ngāti Whātua Orake, which is the iwi that is mana whenua, or the owners is not exactly the right word to use, but the guardians of the land of Tamaki Makaurau, which is Auckland, which is the city that I live in, and the city that some of my ancestors lived in quite some time ago. The Kellys came from Scotland, even though it's an Irish name, and settled in Herne Bay in Auckland, making ships before moving up further north. The reason I mention that is that the story that we often know is our own side of the story, our own ancestors' story. And it's really interesting when you've come from a background which is a settler colonizing background. What is the role of the people who already lived there? And so that was part of the reason that I was especially curious. Now, the meeting was put on by Institute of Directors New Zealand. So we were talking about governance and the unique and special challenges that iwi, that is Māori tribes, essentially nations, the interesting challenges they have with governance. You've got the size and scale of a corporation, but you've also got the complexity of a family business, and you've got the warmth and the care and the collective sense of collective well-being that includes. And you've also got the you can't pick your familyness of it all. So it was just absolutely fascinating. The reason I mention that is it reminded me of something that I did, because I had a conversation with somebody about genealogy, about my work with the New Zealand Society of Genealogy. And yeah, I mentioned that I had studied as part of my master's degree how different cultures around the world celebrate or keep their genealogical records. And I thought, I've never actually properly gone through that. And perhaps today is just such an opportunity. So what sort of gave birth to that thought was being in the wharenui, which is the meeting house, which is adorned with ancestors. And so as we were hearing the story, the history of this iwi, there was a slideshow, there was a screen, and we were told, this is our ancestor. And then we were also pointed to the pole, the carving in the middle of the room. This is our ancestor, and that is how Māori represent and remember their ancestors, through carvings. Not photorealistic, but emphasizing different elements of the personality and the character of the person. And it's just such an amazing way to encounter that ancestor, long departed from us, but forever present. And so at the back wall of the marae, they told us, you can take photos of anywhere, but please don't take photos of the back wall. The back wall had photos of much more recent relatives and ancestors. And so you could see that this is not, it's very easy when you're coming from outside the culture to think these are just characters. But then our trainer got people to put their hands up if you're descended from this person. And so it reminded us, oh, these are real lineages, real people, not just characters in a story. So anyway, that was the Māori point of view. And then yesterday evening, I was part of a call that we're putting on at the New Zealand Society of Genealogists to start an Asian interest group. And we were blessed to have already a really strong core group, mostly Chinese, one Filipino. And within Chinese, you've got many languages spoken. You've got Mandarin, of course. You've got Hokkien. You've got Cantonese. And so it brought my mind back to this research. So let me just share. I basically managed to put it all in one slide, which may make you think that this will be a short story, but no, actually, no, not so short, because this one slide contains so many things. How do we maintain family history? And that was my question to the people that I interviewed. I interviewed about 40 people across Let me see. Most of them were based here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but we're super diverse here, which is a great strength for us. And so I covered many ethnicities and points of origin. I also spoke to some people in Australia. So let me see. From memory, I spoke to people who were Maori, who were Samoan, Tongan, Fijian Indian, which is a very interesting story, quite a sad story because Indians were forcibly brought to Fiji by the British. Thanks, British. And treated very poorly. And now, form a really strong part of Fiji's community. Um, I spoke to people with German ancestry. That was my own relative. So I've got German ancestry too. I spoke to people with Welsh ancestry, Scottish, not a relative this time, but really interesting points of view. Torres Strait Islander and Aboriginal. That was really, really interesting, particularly dealing with going to or not being able to go to a homeland because it's not physically safe. That was quite sad. And Colombia, I think that's all. I think that's the last item on the list was somebody from an indigenous tribe in Colombia who lives in New Zealand and is learning Te Reo Māori. Just amazing, just an amazing journey. So what have we got here? We've got right at the top, we've got buildings. So I'm sure there are more, but there were two cultures that I identified as specifically having physical buildings as a way of storing and maintaining family records. We have, of course, the wharenui. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but we have in the middle, just to the right of center, we have the Maori wharenui, which is, as I said, adorned with ancestors. And every carving there has a meaning and has a name and has a personality and has a history. Then to the left of it, we have the Chinese villages have traditionally or had a place where all the family history records of that village were stored. So for some who still have these buildings, and the name actually escapes me right now, but for those who still have these buildings, it means that there is a place to go back to. And if you can understand Chinese script, you can understand your family history. It's beautiful. Sadly, during the 1960s, there was a thing called the Cultural Revolution, where everything that was old was under threat. Old institutions, Confucianism, temples, a lot of things were destroyed. And unfortunately, a lot of these village halls were also destroyed, kind of trying to reset the country. Thankfully, many of those were actually preserved. And thankfully, the current Chinese government values culture and heritage much more strongly. So yeah, that's physical buildings that you can enter into. One has a written language, one does not. But it's interesting how a physical building. And when I was thinking about this, my study was only kind of random according to who I could find. The cultures that I haven't looked into, but as I was thinking about this, is the Eastern European cultures. When I go walking in Waikomete Cemetery, our nearest cemetery here, there are some pretty big, basically houses containing tombs, and in there, of course, there are records. There's names, those sort of things. And so to the right of our wharenui here, we've got a gravestone, and this one is a stylized one that just says RIP. But of course, we usually put a lot of detail in our gravestones, and so they're essential in that piecing the puzzle together. They have the date of birth, they have the date of death, and they usually have a clue as to who else is in their family. Beloved husband of so and so, beloved son of, or father of, that kind of thing. And it was really interesting when I visited England last year. I got to see my great grandparents' grave, and interestingly, and I'm not sure why, they didn't have those details. They just had, I think it was to mum and dad from Monty, uh, Olive, Jim, and David, thank you for having us. Very English, quite strange. But yeah, no details. However, that's the exception, not the rule. So we have our gravestones that are often very detailed, very important in those memories. Next to that, we've got the cairn. And I've got a cairn. I'm no longer sure. I think it's on private property now, but I was blessed 20 years ago to go to the former Flock House, which before being Flock House was Pointsfield, which was the property owned by my third great grandfather, Thomas Urquhart Mackenzie. And in 1976, the descendants came and put a cairn. So that's basically a pile of rocks. And it's not so much that any one rock has significance, but that it's the act of putting it together and putting it in memorial and having a plaque on it. So one of the people that I interviewed, she's like me, she's a fifth generation New Zealander with roots in Scotland. But for her parents and their parents and their parents had really strongly kept that Scottishness going. And they have a tradition that whenever a new baby is born in the family, they will go to Scotland. They will pick a rock, I think from a river that is meaningful to them, and they'll bring it back. And so no plaques, but they have a collection of rocks with a really amazing story to tell. And I love that genealogy is not only backwards, it's forwards. It's that celebration of new life, celebration of welcoming, celebration of belonging. So that's just incredible. That is a cairn, Scottish cairn, Cairn. Behind that, we've got the tartan, the Scottish tartan. Now, if like me, you've rewatched Braveheart and then watched all the documentaries about why Braveheart is so historically inaccurate, you may have heard that tartans weren't really a thing until after the famous 1745 rebellion. Tartans were outlawed for a while, so you couldn't display your Scottishness. And then around the turn of that century, the 1800s, it became very popular again to be Scottish. And so that's where a lot of the modern ideas of what it means to be a clan, in the past, it was a lot less clear, especially for lowland clans like the Youngs. We weren't a hereditary clan. We didn't particularly have a chief at any given time. We weren't like, say, the Mackenzies, where there was a chief and he had a castle and people, paid homage to him. It's much more of an idea for us lowlanders. But having said that, now tartans are a definite thing. And I've noted as I kind of buy into my own Scottish clan, the psychological effect that it has. So there's the rational part of me going, okay, this is not really about genealogy. I've met the other people in the Young clan. I'm probably not closely related to them at all. My Youngs are different from their Youngs. There were people who were perhaps the younger brother out of a pair of siblings or something, and they chose that name, and that's what unites us. However, the idea is very strong, and the tartan is an amazing, simple visual cue that goes, that's my people. And who would have thought that green and purple and orange would have gone together so well? But that's the Young clan. Anyway, I think I've said that before. So, tartan or just other forms of clothing that signifies this is who I'm part of. I'm thinking back to the Old Testament and the priest, the priest's clothing described in detail in the book of Exodus. They had the front piece, which had a precious gem, 12 of them, one for each tribe of Israel. So right back from those days of antiquity, each tribe had an awareness of, well, I'm connected with this stone because that's how I am worn on the priest's heart before God. Yeah. So meaning comes into these symbolic sort of things. So these are all physical, tangible things. Now, what about when you're reconstructing your identity? And so poems came up in a conversation that I had with two brothers, the Pua brothers, PUA, who are really influential among that early generation of Samoans and other Pacific people who came to Aotearoa, New Zealand in the 60s and 70s, perhaps some of them as early as the 50s, and settled in the Ponsonby, Grey Lynn area. Now, they do some amazing work in preserving and collecting that family heritage. And it's really interesting as their grandchildren's generation is really diverse. They've got Maori, they've got Niuean, they've got Samoan. So they've got all these various strands to draw upon, and poems. So Reverend Moa Strickson Poa is a poet, and he's written some amazing poems about his family history. So poetry generally is great for our memory because it's designed to stick. It's designed to reach beyond just prose, just sentences like I'm saying now. You might find this hard to remember, but a poem is really consciously thought through and created. And I've got some musical notes down there as well, sort of hiding behind my head. Not sure if I can move myself. Perhaps not. But there's some music and somebody singing and chanting. So when I talked with, I talked with my friend Sri, who is a Fijian Indian, and he was saying written records are pretty hard to come by, especially because of that forced relocation to Fiji. But there are chants that live on in the family that are deeply connected with religious belief as well. So that was pretty amazing. Next to that, kind of behind my screen here, down on the bottom corner, we've got some Chinese text. So that's, again, the kind of written records that wrote the names, the dates, the places, and the stories of people in China. What else have we got? We've got right down the bottom here, I've got a little sliver of a photo, and that is the tatau, or the tattoo. In the Samoan culture, in the Maori culture, in many Pacific cultures, and probably, I'm not exactly sure, but probably many other cultures as well, you actually have the story of your ancestors on your body. That's the ultimate commitment. And it's very meaningful because it's not only what it is drawn, but how it's drawn. The fact that there was pain involved. I am too chicken to actually go for a Samoan tattoo, even though I could. Yeah, but what I have heard time and time again from people is that it's life-changing. The pain alters your sense of self, and it doesn't harden you necessarily. It actually, because part of the ceremony is you are attended by your friends and by your family, and so that experience of being cared for is really something. So again, I'm speaking from secondhand experience here, so don't necessarily quote me. On the left, we have something that I've talked about on this video channel before, and that is books. I'm so blessed that on my mum's side, 3 branches of the family have written family history books. So for me, when I joined the New Zealand Society of Genealogists, people were asking, where are my brick walls? I have to look very hard before I find a brick wall. Brick wall just means you can't research any further. The trail's gone cold. Now, because of the dedicated work of my grandfather's cousin, Rob Knight, in the 70s, writing Pointsfield, which was the Mackenzie story, and then Ian Clapham, who wrote Pukeho, the Fraser story in 1995, and the late Jeff Rockall, who wrote We Rockalls in 2004, originally for just his own immediate family, but then some of the rest of us started to hear about it and go, oh, we would be quite interested in that as well. It's a massive piece of work. And Jeff's son Paul also continues on with a sequel that I had a sneak preview of last year, and I will be definitely be doing a video about that. Some really interesting family stories, and I'm so looking forward to sharing it with you. But just saying, it's great to have a book. And part of my research was asking people what is the reason I was asking this question, because I wanted to know what exists, what is already there in the way that we create something as a memorial, because I'm interested in what those memorials look like in the future. And there's nothing yet that quite beats a book in terms of tangibility. It's accessible, presuming you speak the same language as the book, which is not an assumption that you have to make. It's portable. You can take it around. Its battery will never run out, and its file format will never be incompatible. However, books can burn, books can get lost, books can get lent and never returned. But so far, it's one of the most durable, modern, up-to-date forms of family history, and it's replicable as well. You can actually create more than one book, which is a great thing about it. So there's books. Right below our main headline here, we've just got the icon of a family tree, and that's obvious, is that we can keep our family tree, and there's many different ways of doing it. There's some of the software as a service, the cloud-based products like Ancestry, like MyHeritage, like Family Search, which is free, which is great, because often the reason not to use those cloud-based services is they've got a monthly fee or an annual fee, and sometimes it's pretty high. So Family Search is the Scotsman's favorite price. It's free, and it also connects you with other family trees. That's the whole point of it, is so you can connect with other relatives. So when I was researching my wife's family tree, I was able to get the exact name of her grandfather, and then boom, somebody else had done the work, and I was able to go through and try to verify. That's the most important thing. Don't just trust what other people have done, but try to verify all the time. That's kind of the rules of genealogical research. But anyway, these family trees are obviously ways that we can keep and maintain. The thing that I found, and this is what set me off on this channel, is that they don't tell much of a story. They do give you the facts, and depending on the different ways you print it out or show it, they do a really good job at that, but they don't tell you what it was like. They tell you, as my fellow NZSG director said, Gary said yesterday, hatches, matches, and dispatches. The hatches, the being born, yes, matches, getting married, and then dispatches, passing away. They give you those details, but those details are just punctuation points in often really rich and interesting lives. And so family history is stored in those family trees, but not only in those family trees. I got a name tag there. Hello, my name is. What's that about? Well, it's that in a lot of societies, family names are clues. So there was a point where I didn't have my family tree, but I did know, I knew. Now, I was born in the 70s, and my parents were non-traditional. So I got my dad's preferred name as my first name, Simon, and my mum's preferred name as my middle name. Unlike my dad and his dad and his dad and so on, all the previous generations had two middle names, which is interesting. And one of those middle names was always related to the Scottish clans or the famous families that we came from. And so that helped me to know, when I got interested in Scottish clans, that not only Young, but also Lamont or Lamont was of interest, because my grandfather's name was Lamont. His father's middle name was Lamont. His father's in turn name was Lamont. And so, okay, this Lamont thing is obviously important enough to keep on recurring generation after generation. Lamont and Lind kept coming up. Now, it gets a bit confusing when you go to some of the Highland Scottish clans, and they have a tendency to reuse names. I'm not sure why. It must have been quite confusing. Duncan Mackenzie. I don't know how many Duncan Mackenzies and Catherine Frasers there are all the way through the family tree. It's incredible. So this is not foolproof, but having a unique middle name is a really good way of actually pulling on a thread if you're having trouble finding, where your family's from. Middle names are great. They're really exciting. They also can tell a bit of social history. So when I went on to Ancestry.com and started to know the names of the siblings of my fourth great-grandfather, so he had quite a few siblings, some of the names were also names of cities in New Zealand. Napier came up. And so I did a bit of Googling around and found out that Napier was quite an important person around that time. So it was the city that was named after him, or the town, and also my ancestor's middle name. Possibly somebody that they knew personally. Don't know. But these things are clues. Names are clues. So if you have a chance, if you have a child and you're about to name them, think about continuity. It's great to have self-expression, as we did in the 70s, apparently. But it is great to think about continuity as well, because future generations may not have much to go on, and the name can be a real clue. I've got there a grandfather clock, and that is symbolic of objects, artifacts. So, for example, you've seen on my channel the bookshelf that my great-grandfather rescued from his ship as it was going down in the Dardanelles in 1915. Now, one of the ladies I interviewed for this project talked about having too many antiques, too many family heirlooms, and not quite sure what to do about it. Because what do? You don't want to sell them, because you want them to stay in the family, but you don't necessarily want to invest in a storage unit, because why would you? And perhaps grandma's taste wasn't your taste. So these can be as much of a problem as they can be an opportunity. But having objects is a really good way to connect with the past, because and this is what I love about Scotty Morrison's show Origins, because he will speak to the objects as respectfully as to a person. And there's something just very touching about that, the way that he does it. And I've kept it in mind as I have sorted through trash from treasure from my mum's place. There are some things that are really obviously taonga or treasures. Like I've got a locket that I learned was hand painted by my great aunt. That's amazing. And it had tiny photos inside and I've made a guess at who they are based on when it was made and who they look like. But there are other things. So actually, I've got one on my desk right now. This is what's called a valve, or I'm just trying to hold it close so it goes out of blur. It is a valve or a vacuum tube, if you're American, that was part of a radio set from about the 1930s. I've kept it because it looks cool and mysterious, and because the thing that this did, it transfers electricity, it warms up, and it causes you to be able to hear things on the radio. Inside here is a transistor, and now the transistors that are used in my smartphone are absolutely tiny. It's amazing. The very thing that this quite bulky and elegant looking item does is actually microscopic and minuscule. Now, another reason I keep this, it reminds me of my dad. It's not the specific one that he used, but he was a radio ham. And so in the garage, when I was growing up, there was his abandoned project. Well, he'd passed away, so they never got finished. So back in the days, if you wanted to have stereo listening, you had to buy a left amplifier, amplifier, and a right amplifier. And then you had to get a speaker separately, sold separately. You had to solder it all together, and you had a lot of these little tubes that actually made up the whole thing. Then you had to get a turntable, sold separately. Just incredible. And then I grew up in the 80s, and it's even more extreme now, where your electronic gear is not generally meant to be tinkered around with. It's all sealed, it's all tiny, and so it's just a reminder to me of the different era that we're in. I find that really interesting. So objects can connect us, because just like everything on this page, one small thing can hold so many stories, so much meaning. I've got behind that, I've got letters. Now, I don't know what our future generation will have to look at, because when Mum passed, I had a lot of family letters between uncles and aunties, and it was the norm. If you lived in a different city, you communicated by letter, and there was this expectation of you send one, you wait for one. Nowadays, texts and emails and social media posts. And we don't really think a lot about endurance or continuity of those pieces of information. So sometimes our most important moments really are at risk of being lost forever, which is something sad to think about. But looking back, letters are amazing because they do carry so much data. So, as I said, I've got letters from my uncles and aunties in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But then also, when I went to Scotland, I found letters from my fifth great grandfather in the 1800s. What was really interesting was that there was the same little guilt trip of, I'm sorry you've been waiting so long for a reply from me. The social etiquette had not changed in 200 years. Absolutely amazing. So letters are great. Keep your letters. Write letters if you want to do something really different. If you really want to get somebody's attention these days, it's not text, it's not email. It's actually write them a handwritten letter that will stand out like nobody's business. So we've made our way around this one slide from my master's presentation. There's just one more, and that's medals up there in the corner. Now, obviously, medals are physical objects that can be passed down from family, but also I was really lucky. I was looking for information about my third great grandfather, who was a major general. And while searching for his name, I found that his medals had been auctioned. Thankfully, the auction came with a bio. Bliss, absolutely wonderful, saving me so much effort in trying to find the details that were in that biography. Now, I don't know who bought the medals. The auction is long gone, but the listing was still available online. So, yeah, medals, citations, trophies, they all, just like family names, they all offer clues. Just like gravestones, they offer clues. And sometimes it's just satisfying to find out what those clues mean as we try to piece together the history of who we come from, what we're like, what they were like, what their lives were like, what they lived through. And the wonderful thing is the meta effect. We're specifically wanting to know about our people, but then we get to know about their times, the times they lived in at the same time. And we get to decide what kind of people we are. That's the whole point of One Ancestor at a Time, is that we can decide. I was having this conversation with a new friend yesterday about our ancestors may have lent their energy to something that we disagree with, but the energy is neutral. And so I was thinking about this particular major general. I disagree with what he was part of and the displacement and dispossession of the Sikh Empire and all kinds of other things. But when I need to draw on some strength for organization, I remember you are the descendant of Major General Charles Beecher Young. You've got it, and you've got the ability to muster your resources. You can see my body language has changed already just as I invoke that ancestor to mind. So it's really amazing what these stories can do for us. And I don't really care if it's a real phenomenon that's happening or whether it's just psychological, because the effect is the same. It actually helps us walk taller, stand stronger. This is what I love about Polynesian culture, is that there's a Samoan saying that we bear our ancestors in our faces, because so often when we meet somebody who knows or knew our dearly departed loved ones, they say, oh, you look so much like your dad. It's just amazing. So thank you very much for going on this little one slide sojourn this morning on One Ancestor at a Time. My apologies, I had mentioned last week what this week was going to be about, and it was something completely different. So that very well may happen next week. But thank you for joining me on this journey today. Thank you for learning history, one ancestor at a time. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend coming up, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time. Kia ora.